looking out at the former site of Elmira prison camp, Elmira, New York. Prisoners from 1864 to 1865 called this place Elmira, and for good reason. It's November 25th today, 2023, and that pond, Foster's Pond, it's got a nice thin layer of ice on it, telling you the coldness of the fall day here, late fall day. These men were all from the South, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia. Not used to the cold temperatures. Originally they were put in tents. Barracks were built for some of the prisoners later on in the war, later towards 65. Right down here on this side of this knoll I'm standing on, this wall here, the flood wall was put here in 1972 because the Chemung River is right out there, and that flooded. You can see the city of Elmira that way. Well, it flooded this entire area, so they put this flood wall up in 72. Now the camp extended out that way. The truck just went by, so I'm saying maybe 2-3 city blocks. It extended that way, not to the bridge, this side of that bridge, and it extended that way, all the way down there, and that copse of trees, I'll point to it, this copse of trees right here, fence line went all the way from Water Street all the way back to the Chemung River. So this whole area, including where I'm standing on this flood wall, was the camp. Now this is flat where obviously this wall was built, so in this area down here next to Foster's Pond was the sinks and the wells. Wells were close by to where the sinks were. So they, you use any kind of logic, you realize sinks is where you went to the bathroom, the latrines. You don't want your sinks anywhere near your drinking water. And the men wrote letters back home and they complained that the water had a sweet taste to it. Now you can use your imagination as to why. Unfortunately, it was unsanitary. Down that way you see that guy and his dog walking. Just past that little bit of trees there, the sparse bunch of trees on the left, that was where the dead house was located. Every day they go around, and many, of course, the inclement temperatures, the lack of food, illness, smallpox. We'll talk about smallpox in a minute. Any kind of disease just ravaged this camp. They were taken to the dead house, and then they were taken by wagon from the dead house up to Woodlawn Cemetery, which is now a national cemetery with a Confederate section of almost 3,000 Confederate burials. They were taken there. Now smallpox, the winter of 64 going into 65, smallpox ran rampant. And on the other side of the pond, between the pond and the Chemung River, was Smallpox Island. They took the men who were sick from smallpox, and they basically were taken there to keep them away from spreading to the other prisoners and the guards. Many of them died. 64, 65 winter, and early 65 in March. There was a lot of flooding. They had to go out and evacuate the men from the barracks, from the Smallpox Island. So on the wall here, we used to, spectators used to sit. This is modern times. They used to sit on this wall, and down at the end where I showed you where the dead house was, that area there, those far woods, the Confederates, we'd come out of those woods, Union would be on this end, and they'd have a battle down here. The reenactment, Civil War reenactment. I participated in them. See, this is the houses in here. Don't even realize they're in the middle of Elmira where the prison camp was. So I'm not going to take you all the way down to the end down there, but the camp was quite a good sized camp. It was about 24 to 28 acres, and they had gardens down there. The guard houses were up in this area here. The original flagpole is just out front where we came in. That was located across the street. One of the houses you see across the street over there has a marker saying this is the original location of the flagpole. struck by lightning. They moved it. And now it sits in front of the Elmira water board, which is down where that brick building is, indicating that this is the original flagpole that was here when it was Camp Rathbun, Camp Chemung, training, staging, and eventually the area where many of the New York regiments were shipped out of, trained, and then they were shipped out of Elmira here to fight down in Virginia. Many of the men who fought at Antietam, Gettysburg, Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, Gettysburg, I've said already, but they were from this area, and that's where they got shipped out from. Their depot is a local depot here. But the flagpole is now up here. It's shorter than it was, but it is the original piece of the camp. So again, looking at Foster's Pond here, which was one of the main drinking sources for the men. Looking back down toward the city of Elmira, Smallpox Island. Looking this way toward the front of the camp, which ran parallel with Water Street, West Water Street now. If you ever get a chance, learn a little bit of history. What happened right here in New York State. No battles were ever fought in New York State. This is the biggest piece of Civil War history we have in New York State, because it was the notorious site of Elmira Prison. There are many other prisons. Camp Douglas in Chicago was bad too, but Elmira was called Elmira by the prisoners, as I stated before, because of its harsh conditions. We're very close to the Finger Lakes. There was an abundance of food in the fall of '64. There was abundance of food going into this, but unfortunately a lot of the food never made it in to this camp to feed the prisoners. So if you want to do a little research in New York State history, it's containing many things pertaining to the Civil War. A good place to start is right here. City of Elmira, New York, Chemung County, the Chemung River is over there. When you come here, visit the campsite. Then you come visit the Woodlawn National Cemetery and take a look at the graves of the almost 3,000 Confederates who gave their lives here. Elmira Prison Campsite, Elmira, New York.